City, the whole broken windows concept that was cultivated by Kelling and Wilson back in the early 80s, that essentially says that broken windows, dilapidated buildings, graffiti, trash, litter are signs of disorder and abandonment, and it feeds into a whole phenomenon that really compounds on itself. My first initial awareness of graffiti came from television. The phenomenon of Kilroy, I guess, during World War II. Kilroy was here, I guess, as a form of graffiti, but then from there, watching the television shows of the 70s and seeing graffiti on the sides of subways in New York. From there, throughout my high school years, which is essentially the MTV, beginning of the MTV era that opened up the world in many ways, and Keith Haring was a part of that world of individuals, from Keith Haring to Fab Five Freddy and all of those folks who were a part of starting the hip-hop movement in New York. All of those were elements that were interconnected. B-boys and breakdancing and hip-hop were all things that I and others who came of age during the early 1980s were exposed to. And Haring in particular was one who elevated the art form of graffiti to a standard that I guess I had not seen matched until some of the stuff that I guess you just showed me. I remember in particular his involvement with the rendering that he did, I think that he called the Madonna, that became iconic of that early 80s era.
Shreveport shows few signs of graffiti on the main streets. But here, under I-20's giant pillars and adjacent to the rail yards, lies a sort of graffiti park. The local work echoes the bold designs painted on the rail cars that pass through downtown Shreveport. Graffiti Park offers color and artful surprises from Commerce Street past Spring Street and Market Street up to Marshall Street, all of it under the freeway. Basically, it's an obscure and mystifying world of street art.
If I were to try to figure out how Scab did his work here, he had the pinks down, and what he did was he laid down a darker pink and put a lighter pink over it. Did some polka dots, then went over with the black, and finally the white. And looks like the blue was a last-minute addition. Might have had some extra time. As a young man, I'd guess around from the ages of 17 to about 22 to 23, me and my friends, we'd grab spray paint. It was cheap. We could go out and grab it, hit up any white wall we wanted, ditches, wherever we could, and make this art. Well, as I got older, it started becoming a little more risky. I still wanted to work with it, but I didn't want to take the chance or have to run from any authority figures or anything like that. I didn't want to get in trouble, so I started applying it to my paintings. And that's been a constant in my life. Something like this you're starting to see surface more and more. It's coming out from underground. It's finally starting to be appreciated because of people like Banksy, who will take these giant cardboard stencils, go out to a wall in Israel or Palestine and do his art and get out. And he's using this to bring attention to the things in the world he wants to talk about, whether he's down in New Orleans using the stencils to bring attention to Katrina, or he wants to bring attention to the Israel-Palestinian conflict. He's using his spray paint for what I would consider the right reasons. You want people to drive by, see your image, and it's like planting seeds. They're going to think about it.
We were doing some stencils, and we drove the vehicle right up to the location we were going to paint. It was kind of brazen, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have done that, but I mean, that's what we did, and we got busted. Like, the cops basically had how long was it, 4 months? About a 4-month investigation, probably. And they came to our house, they knew everything about me. They had all their information straight, and we got put in court for it and still waiting our trial. We painted a spot that had already been painted, and like I said, it's art, it's not vandalism, and no one even sees it in that light unless you've done this before. So. It's not about trying to say something. It's not about rebellion. It's about the art. It's about the visual aspect of painting. It's the closest thing that you can do to have an art gallery. It's free. You can paint it anywhere you want. So
temporary nature of the art, as degreed, puckered artists, why do we think they do it? The graffiti artists, why do they do it? It's going to be painted over. It's going to be temporary.
I like temporary art. I like my stuff to be here today and gone tomorrow.
Well, think about it. They don't have to approach a gallery. They don't have to submit an application. They don't have to pay an entry fee, and they don't need an agent. And here we are digging it and taking pictures of it and filming it and talking about it. No one's ever spent this much time on my art. I do wonder if by doing this project that you're doing, if it will enhance the creativity or encourage the creativity of the graffiti artists, or will it raise the eyebrows of the building owners and lead to everything being painted and covered.
Stencil portrait of Ronald Reagan that is beneath the I-20 overpass, located sort of behind Central Station. It's a beautiful piece on a lot of levels. One, it's just incredibly detailed, which for a stencil, I cannot imagine making that many wrinkles, that many hairs. Actually, his cufflinks have visible logos. Unbelievable detail for a stencil. Also, we were just talking about the brilliance of the kind of economic commentary. The stencil itself is of a politician who had controversial economic policies that basically turned his back on the poor, and the stencil faces out over basically a homeless park in Shreveport.
A historic railroad spur that served the Louisiana and Arkansas Railway, which connected Shreveport to Baton Rouge and New Orleans, is the site for a collection of old-school graffiti pieces. Some of the faded paintings remind us of the graffiti left by Romans in Pompeii and by Egyptians in Heliopolis.
Central Station, in recent decades variously a restaurant, an art center, a tavern, and gay bar, has a small collection of period rail cars. Typical of rail yards across Europe and the U.S., street artists have adorned the cars with their tags and slogans.
Another downtown graffiti tour begins in the alley behind the Noble Savage Tavern. Colorful stenciling and spray paint tagging can be seen sporadically winding through the almost invisible brick alleys all the way to the railway levee. This is an art trail for those who like sleuthing and subtle surprises.
When you start observing and noticing graffiti, especially when you start looking up out above your horizon of your normal vision, you start looking around and seeing all of these different pieces that are above you that people climb up to. And when you travel to different cities, when you're accustomed to looking up above your horizon at different graffiti, you start noticing graffiti elsewhere and you see cities differently. And you start noticing the architecture of the buildings if you hadn't noticed.
The fact that even though it's a very subversive act, it's a very creative act as well. You're not destroying anything, you're actually making it better. And as big as this stuff is, and as great as it looks, the fact is you have to know where to look to find it. You might think that something like this would be obvious to everyone, but I didn't know where a lot of this was, Robert.
I got into graffiti like in 1999 when I was running for vice president in 7th grade, I think it was, and we needed something good to put on the wall. It was like, man, we'd go skateboard and all that, and that's really how I got other people into it, and they got other people into it, just led on from stuff like that. I was mostly on like West Shreveport, and sometimes we'd come skate downtown. That's how it flowed into downtown. Now, today, it's like 2009, and for like a year now, I've just been kind of doing like local like murals for shops and stuff like that. Right now at H&H for Players and Playettes, with Ron Hardy and stuff, and we're trying to get this thing going in this area just to have more artwork on the street. Okay, here it is. Plan, prep, practice, and perfect. You don't want to get out there like I did today and just kind of screw up and not know what you're doing, because it takes up too much time, man. It's only so much time out of the day.
The back sides of old warehouses and highway pillars under roadways have provided a large, if almost hidden, canvas for regional artists. We found that often this work translates into the artist's homes.
Graffiti in Shreveport to me is signs of life, culturally and artistically. Just to see people who care about art enough to actually take time making stencils or learning how to draw freehand graffiti and taking to the streets, risking jail time to make their voice heard in whatever way and bring some culture to the city is, you know, a very noble and refreshing thing to see.